Andy's getting some things set up, but to let y'all know, yesterday I was on the plane coming back, coming here. I say coming back because I was born in Chicago. I'm Taryn Almendarez. Nice to meet you if you haven't met me before. I'm the owner of NLBC Works, which is me consulting, because right now I'm unemployed. It's fun. But I got a message saying, hi, our speaker for the Building a Strong Business Case for Web Accessibility is unable to come and meet us. You're CPAC certified, you love accessibility, can you help us with this? And I said, sure. And y'all saw how many times my name came up in the presentation. So right now we do not have slides for this, but we are gonna have a conversation because I'm part of the AID team, as I let y'all know, and first of all, I'm trying to not get on my soapbox. Accessibility is critically important for everyone, and especially in times like these, where access is being limited, because some people don't think that it's worth investing in, especially when you get to a point of, do you solve for the Pareto principle of the 80% or the 20%? Some people think that they're immune. When I did my first accessibility talk at Texas camp, it was right after I had gotten swimmer's ear, which I did not know that you could get from being a receptionist. And I could not hear out of one ear, but on top of that, I couldn't even put in headphones, so I learned very quickly how important subtitles are. So Andy and myself are going to have like a panel, fireside type conversation talking about the principles that are up here. We do have some case studies from work that we've done separately. Just to give y'all some of my background, I started my formal web career working for the City of Dallas's Civilian Retirement Fund. We served not only people that had disabilities that were aging, but we also served people in different languages. My first talk that I did was government issues and just talking about the different ways that you solve for actual accessibility and actual diversity issues for populations. I've also worked at Bright Plum, Lullabot, and Lightning Fist, the other Drupal hosting platform, Pantheon. So I have a lot of experience working with folks that have disabilities and fixing websites. So Andy, would you like to come and introduce yourself so I'm no longer awkwardly leaning over here?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Andrew Olson. I work at Principal Financial Group, and I'm a front-end developer. And I was really excited to join Principal because they were right at the beginning of starting their accessibility program. So for me, it was a really great opportunity to join an organization that knew that they wanted to bring accessibility to their work, and they were already doing a lot of really great things with the work that they were doing, but it wasn't formalized. So I was excited, to talk alongside Taryn here about some of my experiences, why I joined the organization where I'm at, the things that I'm doing at the organization as a front-end developer, as a Drupalist here, and just to kind of share some of those things. So unfortunately, like I said, what we have on the screen here is kind of a guiding to the speaker that wasn't able to be here, but the experiences between myself and Taryn, we feel like we can kind of share some of those things with you all and kind of go from there and answer some questions and hear from you all to hear like some of the struggles you have at your organizations and how to bring some accessibility and approaches to you. So with that, do you want to kind of go through some other things? I'll bump up the screen here.
I think it's like, we should have a microphone to pass back and forth. So do I need to lean into it? Can y'all hear me if I just stand here? Okay, cool. One of the things that's very easy to solve for is that if you are in certain industries in the United States, such as finance, or if you're in government, and then education, you are required to have accessibility built into what you do. How many folks in this room are in one of those three verticals? Chris, maybe. And I know that some folks, hi Kat, I've done accessibility talks with Kat before, so that's why I'm picking on her. Outside of that, sometimes people are like, well, why are you wasting extra time on things? People can see the website. How many people know that Beyonce was sued for having an inaccessible website? Yep, because people thought, who's gonna have a disability and want to go to a Beyonce concert? Plenty of people. I believe it was Helen Keller that actually went to orchestra performances, and she could feel the vibrations. Like, just because you have a disability does not mean that you don't want to enjoy life or do things. So that is the end of the thought that I have right there. I also have an attention deficit and left my medication in Dallas, so I'm going to pass back over to Andy. Thanks for.
That's cool.
Yep.
So one of the things that was at Principal Financial and something that I was excited about was an accessibility statement. So they hired somebody that was going to be coming to the organization and take on accessibility in that way. So one of the first things was an accessibility statement on the site, and that was developed. But there's also let me ask the audience here. Does everybody have an accessibility statement on their website? Great. Have you worked on one before?
Can you show us an example of
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure. So these are some resources that we can share afterward, but on the w3.org, there is a great resource here to develop your own accessibility statement. And it walks you through like certain things, and it helps you ask questions. There's another resource as well that I can share. It's kind of a wizard, if you will, to walk you through what kind of statement and what kind of commitment that you have. And so it allows you to pick a standard, which is WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Mm-hmm. And it's an international standard, and it allows you to say, hey, we're going to commit to these standards. So whenever you come to our website, we're going to commit that people can get the information that they need through these various ways. And that was really helpful. Another statement is kind of acknowledging that you're working towards it, and a way that if they do see something on the site, that they can report it, and then that goes to you, and it's kind of a commitment that you're going to be reviewing it, and something that you're going to be working towards. So, go ahead.
Yeah. And so to add to this, right, we're talking about the accessibility statement. Why is it important? How does this prove business value? Well, when you have people that are coming to your website, being able to see that if there's a problem that is keeping them from being able to do business with you, it's frustrating when you run into a problem, but knowing that an org has made that commitment, that is going to retain your customer base. That is also going to possibly get them to talk to someone else and be like, hey, I had this issue, and they were willing to cover it. I believe also some, it's been a minute, I'm kind of under-caffeinated. Some places, some contracts require you to have an accessibility statement, right? Can you talk about
I think
that?
so, yeah.
Yes.
Sure. So in my past life, I was a consultant, and so I was able to perform audits for certain clients. So we were requested to come in and perform an audit, and then I was on the other side too of a remediation. So they already had the audit, and they had the list of things to fix, and so I've done that as well. And again, in my current position, it's a Drupal website, and the great thing about Drupal is it's already kind of had a commitment to having the platform as accessible. But just like anything, just because the platform is accessible, you can make it inaccessible, right? So it's just ever vigilant to do that. And yeah, go ahead.
Can we ask questions?
Absolutely. Sure, I'll just repeat them for here.
Cool. Yeah, you guys mentioned some places where accessibility is oftentimes mandated. That's up front you need to have it. But I think as more and more things go online, especially as an older guy, like I'm not used to doing everything online, but more and more crucial day-to-day things, paying your electricity bill, paying your gas bill, whatever. Those have to be done by everybody. And so I think and I've found some frustrating sites that put you in a loop for an hour because somebody coded it wrong. Anyways, I think the accessibility is becoming more and more of an issue as more crucial day-to-day functions go online.
So it's interesting. So to kind of repeat, you're talking about services that are essential for people in the modern day world, right? So what I think I get what you were saying is what's required is so for like educational institutions that take government money, or I know there's people in the room that do government websites. There is that obligation because you're taking funds from people and you're serving the people, that access is there. So I know education, one of the remediations was educational institutions, but I know governments as well. But as far as like private industry, that is not a requirement as of right now in the United States. Canada has the Ontarians with disabilities.
Oh.
So I know in Canada there's a little bit more, it's a little bit stricter in that they're asking companies and websites to adhere to that. Again, don't quote me on that, but the Canadians are farther ahead with asking businesses to do that.
That reminds me that
Sure.
one of the other business cases for making sure that you have accessibility, like you were saying, you have your websites and services that are coming up, but how many websites are really restricted to just the United States? So even if we're not required, or even if your organization is not required to do it in the home country, the good old US of A, right, if we're thinking about that, if you are doing business internationally, there's often times where you are required by the GPR, EU, my brain is like cycling through all the studying that I did for CPAC. You had to learn all these different laws. And so maybe you're compliant in the United States because nobody cares, but maybe you're not when it comes to Europe. And I was going to say something about China, but I don't know anything about China's accessibility laws. So that is another business case for accessibility. If people say to you, oh, well, you know, we're fine. We're not in education, government, or finance. It's like, yeah, that's in the United States, but we have a bunch of partners out in Prague is coming up in my head right now because I had the DrupalCon Prague shirt. But we have business with Prague, and for the EU, we have these things that we have to do. So that is another business case. Yes?
There's a accessibility law going into effect, I think June 24th in the EU.
Ooh.
That's
Yes.
big, and that's really going to affect basically any business that's doing business.
Thank you. And then for the recording on June 24th, there's an EU law that is going into effect, which is going to affect a lot of folks. Yes, I see Kat in the corner.
Yeah, and also there's multiple states that have their own accessibility laws.
Oh, thank you. So there are also multiple states that have their own accessibility laws. So even if you're not required to federally, you might still have to do that state-wise. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you mentioned CPAC. Is that
Oh, yes. So I have been a member of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, which is a lot to say. But there is a, thank you. I love Andy so much, y'all. I met him while working on MidCamp, and it's just like when I find myself out of hands, Andy's like, hello, I got you. The International Association of Accessibility Professionals is an organization through which you can gain certification. Has anyone else in the room heard of this before? Okay. Oh, there we go. How many of us are certified? Cool, cool. I think I was certified. I think it expired. I got very busy. I have a 2-year-old whose birthday is today, so I've been kind of busy. But
You're here.
I am here.
Just so you know, you can, if you contact them and let them know that, they'll let you add CPAs.
Oh, yeah.
And you can review it.
Oh, thank you, Kat.
Yeah, you can get a credit for this.
Oh, that's true. That's what keeps happening is I keep doing things like this and then forgetting to report it back because I have an attention deficit. So, yes. It's going to be on the recording.
Repeat it for the recording.
Oh, repeat. Oh, sorry. So you can, if you are in a situation like me and your certification has lapsed, you can contact the International Association of Accessibility Professionals and you can get your certification redone. But this is also very helpful in that you will be, for your organization, you might know what you know about accessibility, right? But having this kind of certification will open doors, especially if you are working at an agency or you're doing like contract work, especially with the federal government. Having folks on your staff that are CPAC certified, so this one's a Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies, and that is why I just say CPAC. There are different levels, there are different applications, right? What's the WAS again? Web Accessibility Standard?
Consortium.
No, there's another one. So this is the first level, and then there's a second level up, which is very difficult to get.
It's web accessibility specialist.
Web accessibility specialist, yeah. So actually, when I was working at Lullabot, we had a study group that we did where we were working on getting the certification, and to have, as an agency, to say we have folks that are on staff that are certified to be able to do your audit, to fix these. After I left Lullabot, was it before that? It was before that. So before that, I went into an interview. I had done some talks, and they came in. And the reason why I got the interview was because I was working for a financial institution, and they got sued because they were doing loans and a blind user could not access his profile information. So having this kind of certification has a huge impact on the kinds of clients you'll be able to get, on customer confidence. So, yep.
Yeah.
I heard you breathe.
I am not, well, I just want to give the other side of it. I am not certified. I am a front-end developer that became passionate about all the websites that I built, you know, making access for all in that way. Nothing against the certification, and I think it's great, and the studying for it is great. But what I want to just stress to everybody is that that's not necessarily, it's not necessary for you to go back to your organization and bring accessibility to your organization. Again, through consulting, that's how I was introduced to a lot of this. And again, working on projects where there was a requirement to say all the features that we add have to meet WCAG, whatever the criteria is. And so if you are in that position, you know, there are tools and resources out there that can help you understand more about how to meet those requirements. And so Taryn has a great slide in another presentation that I can maybe pull up here and find in a second, but to help yourself. So for example, again, I'll just talk through experience here. We use a tool called Site Improve, which crawls the site and reports back certain errors, or ways to improve the site to meet that criteria, and it comes up with a score. And because again I work at a financial institution, it has a baseline score, cumulative, and so we look at that score and where we are, and that is definitely a benchmark for us, but we're also looking to improve upon that as well as our own internal organization. And again, this is just for the public site. There's many digital properties at where I work in many applications. And what's been really exciting is that it just came, there's a new policy that any new feature that we add to digital properties needs to meet the WCAG criteria. And they didn't just do that and say that, like, this is what's going to happen, right? It was over the course of a year, and there's a team and a group of people that can help with audit and answer those questions. So I was really happy with the rollout of that at our organization. It gave people time to say, this is coming, ask the questions. There was audits and there was resources and people. There was training that was also done to it. So it's not something that was just thrust upon. It still feels kind of thrust upon, but there's avenues and ways that the team can get that kind of support. So a lot of people kept asking the questions whenever there's a meeting or a conversation about it. It's like, do we have to have that old application, brought up to speed? And the answer is, that's not the priority. But if you're adding new feature, anything net new, and you have an opportunity to improve, like let's say the navigation on whatever feature that you're working on, you have that opportunity, definitely fit that in. So that's the really exciting part of what we have. We personally on our team use tools. I had the opportunity to work with somebody in the room here where part of the process, even when I joined, the team was working on features and checking pages before they went out and got published. But another thing that I want to say is it's not just the site. We also included something called editorially. Are you all familiar with this module? Yes. It is a wonderful module because it's not always just tech. It's editorially, and actually let me bring up the page. Yes.
So I have a funny story that I think is related to this. I kept trying to update my profile picture on MidCamp, and it wouldn't save it. And do you know why it wouldn't save it?
Editorially? Alt text.
I didn't put alt text. It was 3 in the morning, so.
So here it is. Editorially, again, ALLY is a neuronym, if you aren't familiar with that. So it stands for accessibility for the A and the Y, and there's 11 letters in between. So that's why we say ALLY editorially. And what is really great is the coverage that this allows. So we have content authors that work with stakeholders, and there's pages being created right now. So as a developer, front-end developer, we can't always be there for those people in that moment. And what this tool allows is when they're editing and building in Drupal, it catches some very easy things. So again, it helps in the authoring experience, as you heard from Taryn, is alt text. It doesn't, it can stop you from that. I think that was probably a requirement for that
It was a
particular
requirement.
field. But with editorially, it just kind of gives you that a mark on the page and says, are you sure? You don't want to add alt text. And just a brief thing is not every single image needs to have alt text. It might be decorative. And in those cases, it might create more noise. And the great thing about editorially is it challenges you and says, hey, something is missing here. Do you need alt text in this context? So it doesn't error out. It really challenges you and helps you become better. The question.
And I can see the H1 highlighted here. Part of the basic old challenge and ongoing challenge is just to use semantic HTML correctly.
Yes.
Right?
Semantic HTML, huge fan of semantic HTML. And I have an interesting story. So when I first joined, we have stakeholders that need SEO. And as we know, having headers and H1s helps with SEO because that is the main idea of the page. So through the course of us coding, we thought we were very clever. We're saying we can't always guarantee that a content author, and this is before we installed editorially, by the way. So we were having instances where folks were just adding headlines, but they weren't necessarily H1. And we're like, we're missing out on SEO juice to have the title of the page, the H1. But we didn't fully understand the value of showing that H1, H2 to users and how important that is for people that navigate in different ways to have, there's a key that you can bring up the heading structure of a page and help you consume that information in different ways, not just visually, right? So back to the story, we thought we were really clever. We said, hey, we're going to take the title of the page and we're going to add it as a hidden H1 in the page.
Oh, no.
So every time somebody comes, SEO people loved it, right? But it's not visual. So then every headline within the page was always an H2. So you go to the home page or another page, and the banner that you would see would be an H2. But really, it's an H1, but the H1 was hidden. So when we had our team of experts come in, again, I was there. I'm passionate about accessibility. I was like, yeah, that's good because H1s are there. They're, folks are using. They're able to still see that heading structure and get that idea, but it started becoming duplicative, right? So the hidden H1 was the same as the H2 that was in the page, so it just became duplicative. As you can see, it was a fallacy of the approach, right? Again, you think you're clever with how you're doing this, and then when you know better, you do better. So we're backing that out and making those changes. But the whole point of semantic HTML is the page structure makes sense. The H1 is the main idea. H2, you don't just skip to an H3 or an H4 because it's smaller and looks nicer, right? So there's ways stylistically to have the same flow of it without skipping headers around. So, yes.
I don't know if you answered this question while I was out of the room, but I wonder, other than for legal reasons, what is the sort of sales driver to really sell why to do accessibility these days?
Yep. Actually, thank you, Nora, for the question, and I believe that it picked it up. What is, outside of the sales driver, the point or to push, outside of legal things that you are forced to do, what is the driver for doing accessibility? Thank you for asking that question. It'll actually expand upon the question that we were just asked about semantic HTML. So these things are great for screen readers, having your site with semantic HTML, but expanding outside of that, as the technology is coming up, when we first started getting things like Google Homes and the Amazon Alexas and all these other Internet of Things that are digesting all of this content that we're putting on the internet, when you try to interact with the Internet of Things, if you have your site semantically loaded correctly, the content will be rendered on all these different multimodal platforms in a way that when the technology, so you might have your content that is already there. We don't know the next piece of data that's going to come out. What's the big thing that nobody stops talking about right now? AI. And so for those of us that had our website semantically enabled well, now when somebody like me goes to ChatGPT and says, hey ChatGPT, I could do one of those. Like, what is it that MidCamp has going on this next week? I actually had it build me a Google Calendar based off of the events that were listed on each day of MidCamp. So, when you build your site, not just correctly as far as rendering on the page, but semantically with great accessibility, then you have something that can adapt, that is adaptable, and that is resilient and will be able to change as technology evolves. So that is one business case that I have. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I'll just say, with the maybe it's less about legal and scaring folks into doing the right thing. It's really about the serving your customers. So at the financial institution, the goal is to have financial security for all. And it was a very easy statement for us for accessibility, because that is the mission of our company, is to provide financial security for all. I'm getting the exact wording down, but the whole point is that we serve our customers, and anybody should feel comfortable in their financial future and investing and how they feel financially. So accessibility just makes sense, right? If it's for all, you don't say financial security for just these people, but not these people over here. So that jump for our organization, the organization I'm at right now, was a very easy jump. And when you start looking at your website through that lens, and you start looking at everything you're building, you have your own experience and you think things are clever, right? So, we're gonna go get this information, we're gonna present it back in this way. But perhaps, is there a way that folks can access it in different ways? Is it searchable? Can they sort it in a different way? So those kind of questions that you ask, and are those tools easy? Is it easy for them to manipulate some of that data or get at that data? Let me give you an example, is like a graph, right? So if it's just like a pie chart on there, visually, you might be able to interpret and understand that. But some people might need some more help understanding and interpreting it, and then also making that data accessible and available in different ways. People can consume it in different ways. So that's something, again, at a financial institution, there's a lot of charts, there's a lot of graphs, there's a lot of analysis. And so providing that way to get at that data in different ways, not just visually, but also making sure the contrast, people can understand and see that, and also the description of those things, like the audio description of those things, has been a shift. One other thing is video. So every video, nobody's able to really upload a video to our website without a transcript. So that is a requirement. And what's great is that's normalized, right? A lot of these things are normalized. And so these are great things to take back to your organization and to work to make those organized, normalized. So why would we ever put a video up there that doesn't have a transcript? Or if they say, it's on YouTube, there's auto transcripts. Well, what if you have an interesting product name that keeps getting misinterpreted every time? So you would never work with marketing and say, oh, I just made a wonderful page and I misspelled our flagship product. That would never happen, right?
Never fly.
So it's just bringing that kind of ideas to just making sure that access is there. Anything else?
Oh, lots of questions.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm not gonna ask you to stop the presentation, but I think your translator died.
We need to hit the reconnect.
Oh, no. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Trying to do too many things at once.
Yep. You. Yep.
I think everyone in this room kind of agrees, right, that accessibility is important, that otherwise we wouldn't be here. I think kind of going off of what you just finished, Andy, talking about that normalization of things, I think, have either of you encountered a moment where it's like, it's just more, when you encounter someone, either you're in your consulting work or in your organizations now, where it's just like, there's no money in it, there's no time, it's harder than it is, that sort of stuff. So like before that normalization happens, like truly getting folks on board and having that buy-in, right? I work in an education space, I work at a university. So I think like we know it's important, right? But I think it's like when you kind of get down to like, well, this is someone's time and effort. Do we have an extra person to be doing this? You know, it's gonna take longer than it is. Like, why can't we just spin up a video on YouTube and like do the bare minimum, like that sort of stuff. So I guess it's like that level of pushback that you've gotten to get to that normalization stage.
Do you want to take it first?
Yeah, I'll reiterate. So the question is, what are some barriers that have been brought before it became normalized? And that's a great question and experienced that many times. And just to admit, I was that developer that was like, why are we doing this? And I was like, we have this insane timeline. We have to, do this. And what really turned me around was semantic HTML, was not being clever with certain requests that were coming in. Another great thing that I didn't say is that we have a design system. And so design system had accessibility baked into it. So the people that are building the reusable components that assemble the page worked hard to make sure that it was accessible. As always, people can make it inaccessible. So it's just that education about that. So using a repeatable design system, understanding when there is a new feature, again, a person in this room, we work together on things that were outside of the design system. So we had this really wonderful design system, and then they were clever and said, for this new section, we're gonna do this new thing. And so it was a commitment between us to bring that to our work and make sure that that new pattern, when we do it and develop it, meets that criteria. And again, as I said, we had a whole year to kind of understand what new features mean and what that means to it. And it wasn't just, this is the way it's going to be. It's using tools. It's getting outside perspective. So I would code something, and then the other person would, I'll say your name. I can say your name. Okay, I just didn't want each other. Aubrey, I was lucky to work with Aubrey, who, when I joined the organization, was already doing all these wonderful things, bringing that to her work. And so when we do code reviews between people as well, and so I would look at her work and I'd say, wow, this is really great. But there's times when I said, have you thought of this? And you're never going to be perfect. I want to promote my shirt, progress over perfection. So that's a person named Meryl Evans, who's a wonderful individual that gives some great talks. So her thing is progress over perfection. So anyway, hopefully some of that helps. Question or comment?
Yeah, I have some to that. I just don't want to forget it.
Sure. Yeah, please.
And so from my end of it, a lot of the work that I do, like just as a developer and now as a consultant myself, addressing the barriers that people have when they're limited on time, cash, etc. I had to write it down so I remember your question. A lot of it is really selling to the people that you're working with what is in it for them. In the abstract of the talk, it talks about you're not just going to have a developer that you're working with. So when I went to that financial organization, the people that I had to convince were not just the people that hired me, but also the QA team that we had. That was like, wait, what are y'all asking us to do now? What are you asking us to look for? We have all these other sites that we have to fix regular important issues for. Why do we have to do this accessibility thing when it already works? Aside from the suit thing, this is one time that we got sued. This person's going to be okay. And having to work with the project managers that I worked with, the designers, folks that Andy was talking about, really helping people to understand how is this going to help you to erase your technical debt, your project debt going forward, and letting them know, hey, often when we are working on something, we think, oh, great, now I'm gonna have to do this, I'm gonna have to do it from scratch. It's that people don't recognize that it is going to take time. It might not take as much time as you think it would. There's a bunch of folks that are in the accessibility space that have put together great lists and resources. Kat Shaw has a great presentation. I'm not just saying that because she's in the room and not just because she's my friend, but there's a lot of stuff that I've learned from her. There was also Rachel Olivero, who was a super important contributor in the Drupal space, who has passed away. After Rachel passed away is when I found her content and was able to use that when we were doing the accessibility audits at the financial institution. So helping them to understand what it cost them before by not doing it, all the errors and bugs that they're getting because they didn't build it the way that it really should have been built the first time, what problems it's helping you to solve right now, the resources that are available, because there are, I was working on React projects at the time, and there's so many React plugins and libraries that are already there for you to use that have accessibility built into them. So if it's already there, why not just do it? Like, that helps people to get over the psychological hurdle, and then also selling them, and not like selling them monetarily, but convincing them of, this is the time that we're gonna save by not having to do this. When I taught the QA team how to do audits, y'all, they went and they audited everything. They were so excited, like, look at this, all these key presses are wrong, we're gonna fix all this stuff. Job security. So that is how I approach it.
I can ask a few things.
Yes.
Kind of related. So because I have this thought all the time, and so in one of the talks I actually think about this. So the first case is obviously the legal case, and so you're talking about the WCAG and Section 508, and so there's also the ATAG criteria, which is specifically for the admin side. So if you have employees with disabilities and they need to edit your site, and they have disabilities, that covers them. And so if you're not taking care of them on that side, then you could be sued as well. So that's the other thing to consider. The other case would be the business case. So it's like 1 in 4 or over 25% of users in the states report having one or more disabilities, which means there's even more people that have a disability in the states that don't even report it. And then globally, it's like 16% or 1 in 6 people report having disabilities. So again, more have it that don't report it. And most people have more than one. Like if they have a disability, they have multiple disabilities. And in 2024, there was like over 4,000 lawsuits were filed, 80 lawsuits mid-year were filed. So, so those are the business case. So if you are trying to sell it to your employer, you say, well, why would we ignore 1 in 4 people, potential clients or whatever? And then like the human case, you could say, well, it's the right thing to do. You could say, we have, if it's 1 in 4, then we of course have employees with disabilities or employees with family members with disabilities and stuff like that. So what are we saying to our employees and stuff like that?
And Kat, we're getting close to time. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
So I'm just going to say, use some simulators or test with AT users, things like that could help. And just also, it can save time and money in the long run if you do things properly, like doing it from the beginning instead of the end.
And just quick for the recording, some of the reasons outside of what Andy and I have stated that Kat Shaw mentioned is when you have internal employees, they have rights in the workplace that need to be adhered to. So the accessibility helps your folks internally. 1 in 4 people have disabilities and often multiple disabilities. So ask your person that you're trying to convince, why are we going to ignore 1 in 4 people here? Why are we going to ignore 25% of the people that we are working with? I know that we had maybe some more questions. I will be here all week. Andy will be here all week. Nora's not letting us go home. Help us if you hear that. I'm kidding. But thank y'all so much for still coming to this. Thanks for vibing with us and working with us and meeting us where we're at, because that's what we do with accessibility. Thank y'all.